So Persona 6 is gonna come eventually, and this might be a little premature, but I assume we'll see it sooner rather than later. So before this year ends, I want to highlight the 6 changes I want to see with Persona 6.
Oh, you guys planning a nice big bank robbery or something?
The first one is kind of obvious. Persona 5 and its enhanced version, Persona 5 Royal, launched exclusively on the PS4. It took a whole 3 to 5 years for them to eventually come to all modern platforms. And I hope the success of P5R on all modern platforms will drive Atlus to make their next game a multi-platform release. Of course, that assumes no one buys timed launch exclusivity, that's been happening a lot in the industry, so, Of course, this isn't really a change in the game between P5 and P6, but I think it's worth vocalizing since we still don't know whether Atlus plans to keep their launch exclusive or not.
Maybe someday I'll show you the real good stuff, though. If you got the guts for it, of course.
Persona 5 Royal pretty much exceeds Persona 5 in every way. You have brand new well-written confidants, an overhaul to an existing confidant, new features and options to do in and out of combat, redesigned dungeons, and many added scenes to existing events. With all that said, I hope Persona 6 avoids doing this enhanced version stuff. I'd gladly spend my money on a DLC story arc that comes with a ton of QOL features, but I know there are tons of people who played vanilla P5 and skipped out on P5R both either because of the price tag or the heavy time commitment attached to replaying the whole game from scratch. To be honest though, I'm not entirely sure of how intricate you can get with patching a game. I'm not well versed in this side of tech, so I'm not going to pretend to know that Royal could have been 100% a patch. But I'm also going to say that if it is possible, I hope P6 doesn't do the pay $60 twice thing again.
Anybody order a mascot character?
This one has kind of been on my mind for a while. Mascot characters are common, at least in modern Persona games, and I don't really like the way they're approached. I'm going to single out Teddy and Morgana here, but both of them have this trap of very interesting and potentially relatable character arcs that are kind of bogged down by annoying character traits or poorly written events. Teddy is much more obvious and much more obnoxious than Morgana's, but that doesn't leave Morgana to be absolved of his outburst. They both exhibit realistic character traits, but when they need to be good, the game doesn't allow them to be. Teddy is too focused on scoring with girls, a trait that just kind of comes out of nowhere.
My, it's getting crowded here. Why don't you and I go somewhere else? Come on, pretty please?
I kind of get what they're going for, where he doesn't really understand it and he's just doing it because he believes that's what people do. But this is just bizarre and random. It doesn't feel like it fits. So yeah, I really want them to just either move away from mascot characters or change them a bit. Teddy would be fine with his base personality of being just a silly bear making bear puns and bad jokes, but the hitting on girls thing really just doesn't work for him. And Morgana isn't as unbearable with his Lady On shtick, but it's definitely not my favorite trait about him, and I think if they toned him back, he'd be more likable and less weird.
The exams. I bet you got a big fat F on them.
Difficulty in Persona games is really just stat sticking. It's really not all that special when you jump from normal to hard and the game goes, okay, these guys can do a bit more damage and have more HP, as if there's nothing else they can do. I touched on this a bit in my Persona 5 Royal review, but honestly I think SMT is a great reference on how to raise difficulty in Persona. I don't need it to be exactly the same. In fact, I think that difficulties very easy to normal could be left untouched, and maybe even hard. But I think giving both you and your enemies the same set of tools is a very good way to design difficulty. Let enemies baton pass and stuff. Give them the tools that you use as well. If you want to make the game hard, try to go with adding a mechanic rather than stat sticking. You could give enemies Harrison recovery, and maybe even the ability to shield others from damage. Of course, there's a fine line between hard and frustrating, so I think it would be a bit more of a difficult task to accomplish. But I think it's a good idea to attempt balancing harder difficulties with more than just stats. This one's not really important, but I think future Persona games and characters could benefit from being not romanceable. For P5, every character is kind of tied to you. The romance candidates can't really shove off your advances or pretend to be not interested in Joker in that light. It's just a little bit too much in my opinion. Earlier Persona games had less of this, with several characters not being romanceable, and I just don't think that you need to make every girl in love with your main character, because sometimes it just doesn't really make that much sense.
I'll let you in on a little something.
Okay, so the next one kind of contains some pretty major spoilers for Persona 4 and Persona 5 Royal. So if you haven't finished those, I would recommend that you skip to the last chapter of the video. Also, I guess I'll advise against going into the comments and reading them because there may be some comments that are filled with spoilers. I can't guarantee you won't get spoiled either way. So tread carefully. 3, 2, 1, 10.
Sensei!
So I know it's a very, very, very popular trope to end Persona games with a fight against God, but I don't think it necessarily has to stay. I do like the whole setup with P4, having the gas station attendant from the beginning of the game is a pretty good twist. But with P5, it kind of both feels like and doesn't feel like it came out of left field. It's not bad, but the first time I played P5, I was kind of blown away that for some reason God had to show up and we have to kill him. Either way, with both of these endings, I felt like there wasn't a huge emotional tie to the gods, so maybe what I'm saying is you don't need to fight a god who you didn't get to know very much, but instead, maybe someone more like P5R's final boss, Maruki, who is a character that you got to know very well over the past year. I think what I really want is just a good payoff final boss, and not just the constant need to shove in a god because it's what we always do. I don't know, I might be missing something narratively, or maybe not. It just feels better when you fight a final boss who has a very big payoff both personally and for the outcome as well.
Good job.
So whenever Persona 6 does get announced, whether my desires are met or not, I hope you guys are excited as I am. It could be soon or it could be a while, but I hope to see some overhauls to the game that could make it even better than Persona 5 Royal. So what do you think should be changed in Persona 6? Combat mechanics? Story tropes? The entire system? Let me know in the comments. As always, leave a like if you enjoy the video, and subscribe to the channel for more things Persona, Atlus, and JRPG related. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.